Venom fucking sucked.
Classic.
That was a 2 out of 10 movie. That was complete and utter shit, and I love the fact that I spent $8 on a ticket for it because I had fun.
3 out of 10?
2 out of 10.
2 out of 10.
It's garbage. Like God, I didn't even have that much fun. And that's exactly why it's a 2 out of 10. But it had its moments, you know, and I can't regret seeing it because you sit there like, wow, this is a movie. You know, this got made. Like, people agreed to work on this, and now it's a thing.
Yeah, 100%.
And you kind of got to admire it for that.
I think, you know, because you know how they've greenlit like a sequel and a bunch of franchise
like
movies
a whole
for this?
Universe, yeah.
Like, I think that in terms of that aspect, because, you know, that is the topic of our show, like, it's super, like, weak in terms of building a universe, you know, in hindsight, but if this becomes, like, the character of the movies going forward, then, like, if we get to see more of this kind of humor in, what I have, the Black Cat movie, the Kraven the Hunter movie, like, there are a bunch of ones that are just ridiculous, but
Kraven could be really cool.
If we get to see this kind of humor in more movies, I'm actually going to be down, because it's something that, like, I had seen before, but I just didn't really enjoy it as much as I found that I kind of was in Venom.
I mean, yeah, and, like, what you're saying is true. I feel like in Venom, there's a good movie hiding for one, but there's also potentially a good universe that's in a very, very bad way being developed here, right? Because, say we do get a Kraven movie next, right? So Kraven, he goes after Venom and wants to hunt him because obviously that's like the biggest head on the market or whatever. That'd be a very cool movie.
Yeah,
Yeah. And with the humor, right, that Venom had, because that was the one thing that it had going for it, with Venom kind of just bitch talking, what's his face all the time?
Eddie Brock,
Tom Hardy.
yeah.
That's great.
Oh,
you
yeah.
just have a movie of that,
yeah.
but with Kraven in it too, then yeah, I can't be mad. Honestly, can't be mad.
Yeah, 100%.
Not taking away from the fact that Venom has so many problems and it's so bad. And like, did we go into spoilers? Like,
yeah, sure.
We should do spoilers.
We could talk spoilers.
No, we totally should, yeah. Because I feel like Venom, we were all expecting it to, but it fell apart in the third act. Was just, no one was enjoying it anymore at that point.
I mean, like, honestly, here's the thing, is, like, the third act is where they had to resolve the plot, and the plot itself is, like, my biggest problem with the movie. As with probably most people who went to see it, like, anything that didn't actually have an on-screen Tom Hardy talking to Venom was kind of, like, boring me to death. I was so done with the villain, with whoever Riot's alter ego was. I hated him. He was so boring.
He was paper thin.
Yeah, he was so weak.
Just evil for the sake of being evil, and it was terrible. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
absolutely terrible.
I don't know. If we get a sequel, high hopes. Do you reckon they'll listen to the fans? Do you reckon they'll listen to the fans and say, hey, you know, what people loved about this was the humor and the character. Let's make it R-rated. Let's put some writing effort behind this movie.
Teeth.
Do you reckon that's what's going to happen? Or do you reckon Sony will just fuck it up?
I mean, it's Sony because, yeah, that's what we're worried about. It's like the EA of the movie business, right? But at the same time, yeah, it made a shit ton of money so far. And it's gotten US top charts for 2 weeks. You're kidding me.
How
does that work?
Weekly box office.
So I hope that Sony's kind of going to be like, oh yeah, no, so let's make a good movie next, because this was just a low risk, low effort kind of let's see what happens sort of production. But considering that it's Sony, they'll probably just be like, oh guys, we got a winning formula and we're going to stick to it, and then we're going to get like a really bad Kraven movie coming after this.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
definitely worried about them doing that. But, you know, Todd McFarlane was behind it, very behind it. Like, I've been following his Instagram since release, and he's, like, so happy with it.
Are you kidding?
Even though it's, like, a terrible movie, he loves the character, first and foremost. He loves the design. And, like, you know, he's been promoting the fuck out of it. He's been doing really well. And, like, and I like it, because Todd McFarlane is a person who's really, really into being in control of his characters. You know, if you don't know any of the history of comics, like, he started Image Comics just so that he could have creative control over the characters that he writes.
But did he have any creative control over Venom movie?
No, he didn't. He got kicked off of Spider-Man, and that's why he started Image Comics.
Oh.
So, like, it's cool. I really like it, and if he won't have any input, but that, on that recommendation, I feel on his character alone, and the fact that he appreciates the people who made this movie, I have high-ish hopes for a sequel.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for our second episode, we have a lot to talk about. The first thing we wanted to do was something that we neglected to do last week, but we kind of wanted to just focus in on Marvel for our first episode. This time we're going to look at what makes a good franchise is going to be for our first part, and then we're going to pit head to head. Marvel isn't even your favorite, but you're going to put up Marvel against my Star Wars, which is probably one of my favorite movie franchises.
Basically, they're the two biggest franchises out there right now, and I want to have this fight. I want to talk about why Marvel is the better franchise.
Yeah, sure, buddy.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after that, we're continuing our rewrites, talking about the MCU Phase 2. And this is
the fun phase because it's terrible.
It's a big phase of movies. I think it's okay, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
All right. So first, the 3 parts of a good franchise. We'd already written these down. We brainstormed these before we started. But number 1, character is what I have, and I think it's these two we pretty much agreed on the first 2 out of our 3.
Yeah. Character and consistency.
Character and consistency.
That's right.
And what it comes down to is you think about what has made the biggest success, what has made the biggest impact is franchises that manage to be consistently A, good movies, and B, good explorations of a central character. Right, and this is what I like when I think about these 2 in conjunction. I always think of Harry Potter and a few others that come to mind. Marvel's pretty good,
because it shouldn't revolve around a single central character, right? Because the whole point of a franchise is that you're fluid in that sense. You're more flexible. You can have multiple characters that can potentially be the lead man lead woman, of course, for a particular movie or a particular phase.
Yeah.
You look at Marvel, and even Star Wars, it's Luke Skywalker, sure, for the original trilogy, but after that it's Anakin, and then for the new one it's Rey for the new trilogy, and with the spin-offs it's always a different main character.
That's definitely true, but I think that you still need a leading man, and you still need a leading, man is kind of prototypical of the last 30 years of Hollywood, but you need a lead character, and you need a character that can carry for at least 3 or 4 mainline movies. Because if you look at Marvel, you have Iron Man. If you look at Star Wars, you have Luke Skywalker, Rey, and Anakin, like you said. If you look at Transformers, even they tried to do it with Shia LaBeouf with Sam Witwicky.
Who was the best protagonist, by the way?
I mean, they never topped him.
He was never good, exactly. So he didn't really set the bar too high.
They never topped him, and also I think that's what's made Shia LaBeouf such an interesting person now.
Yeah.
To talk about for me, at least.
No, he hated doing those. Well, he hates him looking back on him, which is great.
All right.
Talk that.
So character and consistency are our first 2, and our next one is the one that we had a little bit of contention on. I said it was Endgame.
And I said it's copying the Marvel skeleton. But this is also where we need to delve into our definition of what is a good franchise, right?
True.
Because a good franchise... Look, franchise is a relatively new term anyway, right? When we look at... Sure, we've always had, sequelitis, and we've had, series of movies and whatnot, but Marvel and everything that's come after that, basically, has basically set the stage for a new era where everyone's trying to create a universe where you get spin-off movies, where you get all this stuff this universe where you can just keep building on top of it, right? And that's why I'm arguing that if you want to have a franchise in the definition that Marvel has basically made it into, then you need its skeleton. You need to set up that huge universe with just all these potential stories waiting to happen that all just end up being interconnected by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's really fair. Building out a huge universe is a big prerogative of a good franchise, but at the same time, I really push for Endgame being the deciding factor, because you look at like we mentioned Transformers, right? Transformers doesn't really have an Endgame, and as a result, people have been paying less and less attention, or at least from my perspective, people pay less and less attention to these movies. And then now all of a sudden, you know, they're doing a prequel, and it really feels like the franchise has a direction. And like I'm back on board, but I completely ignored the last two movies because I just felt like there was no direction when we'd already had like two existential, you know, the world's gonna end if we don't help the Autobots.
Yeah,
threat levels.
Basically they couldn't top it. Exactly.
Yeah,
they couldn't
and so
top the threat we already had.
You know,
before that.
they didn't succeed in building a universe enough, so I can see why they would support your point as well. But I think what ultimately killed those movies was the fact that they lost sight of their end game. They never had one.
Exactly.
Even they never had one, and that's a big thing. That's like a big thing that I really think about, especially when it comes to these movies. Especially when it comes to something like Venom, like there's nothing pointing Venom towards an end game. If this is supposed to be the start of their huge franchise, like it's a really, really rough start because there is an end game. But then again, you know, Iron Man didn't really have an end game inside. It was more of just, you know, test in the water, a toe in the deep end.
Yeah.
But
and Venom was kind of the same, right? Except Iron Man's a good movie. Venom isn't.
Yeah, that's definitely
that's our key
true.
difference.
That's definitely true.
I'm pretty sure Venom has made more money though, which is upsetting.
No, I don't think so. I think Iron Man was really successful.
Yeah, but was it?
I might look that up.
Because the thing is, like, at this point, movies make such a dumb amount of money.
They do.
Like, it's funny because when they really hit off, they make $1 billion like it's nothing. You know, and I think Venom by the end of it will probably hit $1 billion. I haven't looked at the figures recently.
I think $1 billion's a bit much, but hey, maybe it will.
Well, I mean, Iron Man sure
I'm
did,
I'm gonna keep looking at those figures because it's fascinating to see how much money a really bad movie is making.
I mean, it's like that's the subtitle for the Transformers documentary. You know, how much money can a really bad movie make, or a really bad series? Holy shit!
Yeah, no, but I still think it's more of an end game because even if Marvel didn't have the built out universe, and all it was like a few Iron Man movies, a few Thor movies that were all in sequence and all directly linked to each other, and a couple of Avengers movies, and then Infinity War. You know, I'd still be pretty grateful for Infinity War,
right?
Because it's a good fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, and that's their end game.
But it's really not, because they're going to keep going after Infinity War.
Yeah, I know, but this is the point.
Like what we called last week, the next generation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we're going to get Secret Invasion. But I think, that they're just deciding on a new end game. You know, because, like, they already decided on it ages ago. Like, obviously, as soon as they greenlit the Captain Marvel movie, they were like, we should do Skrulls. That's a cool element of the next leg in our universe that we can explore. So, obviously, they've been thinking about it in advance, but when they were making Avengers 1 and when they were making Iron Man 3 and Thor 2, like, this is not something that they were thinking about. What they were thinking about was, holy shit, like, we've only just started, and we have to make it from here to Infinity War, to Thanos having all six Infinity Stones. That's the end game.
Yeah.
And so they're like, how do we get there? How do we, show everything?
Yeah.
That's what I like,
Yeah. And how do we put an Ant-Man movie in this that ultimately doesn't mean anything?
I think Ant-Man might end up meaning more in Avengers 4, but that doesn't make the movies more consequential. Like, the character will be more impactful.
No, dude,
but
he's going to be comedy relief. He's going to be like the Flash of the team.
There's a lot of theories floating around about the quantum realm, the whole, like, realm that he goes into.
That being the means of stopping Thanos, right? Because for me, it was like, I think Hawkeye's going to play a much bigger part because he's part of the original 6. And then I sit there like, yeah, but he's a dude with a bow and an arrow, or arrows, right? Whereas quantum realm is definitely something that you can exploit. You know,
there are a lot of theories floating around about it. So I think he'll come in, but that doesn't make the movies more consequential.
Yeah.
They're kind of just still there.
Because,
all right. So do we reach a conclusion? Are we pushing a conclusion, or are we just kind of going, yeah, well,
look,
it's kind of a mix.
No. What I basically want to say about the whole, you argue that we need an end game, right? Whereas I'm like, no. What you need is a universe. You need a skeleton that's set up for all these stories to play out. I think that both Marvel and Star Wars have the exact same skeleton when it comes to that. Just the ability to basically exploit the universe that they have for more stories. instead of setting up a definitive endgame. Because that's what you want with trilogies, right? You look at the original trilogy of Star Wars; they had an endgame because they were like, we're gonna have God, how did you describe it yesterday? It was pretty good. We're going over our notes. It's like this intergenerational conflict, between father and son. That basically, like the fate of the universe and the conflict between good and evil is all revolving around it.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's cliche, sure, but it's also great, and it works great for the trilogy. But what we have now we have this whole universe that's set up, which is just like it's prime for spin-offs, for future sequels, for all this stuff. It's got to be open-ended because we don't want an end game. We don't want to tell stories like that anymore. At least the executives don't want it. The writers, I'm sure, do, right? But if you want to keep making money, which is how you make it in the industry as it is now, then you need an open universe.
I mean, yeah, I definitely feel like that's definitely a way to go, but that's at the executive level. But at the writing level, I really think like a good franchise has a good end game.
Right, yeah, which is basically like our disagreement is a good franchise one that makes a lot of money, or is a good franchise one that tells a really good story? Because I think you can't get a franchise that tells a really good story because that defeats the purpose of a franchise.
That's
the whole
true.
point of a franchise is having this Marvel skeleton.
That's true.
This open universe.
I mean, like
otherwise you're doing a trilogy.
Yeah,
otherwise you're doing Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, we pitch like our ideal Marvel movies, but like the reality is that probably most of our rewritten stuff wouldn't happen because like would this entire Hulk rework even actually work in terms of money making? Like, probably not.
Yeah,
sucks, but whatever.
It's too unconventional, right? And at the same time, it's also just it feels like a coherent story that exists on its own, and that's not what you want. Like, sure, that is what you want from a cathartic point of view, because every movie needs to kind of land in its own way, right? But at the same time, every movie is so focused these days on pushing an agenda of future characters, of future movies, of spin-offs.
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the issue with the industry, but it's exactly what franchises stand for.
So I feel like we're kind of sitting on...
good franchise needs to have that skeleton.
I feel like we're kind of sitting on like a 50-50 thing.
Yeah.
Because a franchise that makes a good franchise to us would obviously have that good end game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like franchises nowadays especially sit on that Marvel, that
By
idea
definition,
of an extended universe for success.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Star Wars v Marvel.
That's a great segue into our discussion for Marvel versus Star Wars, because look at Marvel. Marvel does it great. The whole skeleton that I'm describing. Star Wars is just confused. Star Wars doesn't know what the hell it's doing, because Star Wars started off as this grand space opera trilogy. Sure, George Lucas had his stories about Starkiller that he'd set up, quote unquote, but that doesn't explain the drafts that we got initially for the prequels versus what they turned into.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
But yeah, it turned into this conventional Marvel-like franchise that we have today, and I think that it misses every beat that Marvel hits.
See, yeah, like, but here's where I start to think about how they build up the Star Wars movies versus how they build up the Marvel movies, right? Because like, for Marvel, they release 3 movies a year. But for Star Wars, they're still tying everything into the core movies, right? The numbered episodes in this it's now 9 movie long saga. So like, they're still trying to tie everything into that. That's why Rogue One is literally just a movie about explaining one plot point in A New Hope. And that's why Han Solo, or Solo, A Star Wars Story, is literally explaining like the small handful of lines that Han Solo has in Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope. That's like, I met this guy Lando, I won the Falcon off of him, blah, 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 blah.
We have an entire movie dedicated to like 3 or 4 lines. Like,
not dedicated to that. I don't think that that's nearly what it is. It's like, the story exists, right? The story exists because it's alluded to. Like, it's not based off of those lines. Like, that's silly to say. What the character said is something like, I can't remember any of the quotes.
To be fair, I haven't seen the movies either, so that might be a bit of the movie Solo, so that might be a bit of an exaggeration. But at the same time, what sucks about it, fundamentally, and what sucks about all Star Wars spin-off material, is that it's set between, like, where we are in the trilogy right now and the starting point, and even before that,
Oh, so you're saying,
with
like-
Old Republic.
So you're
and
saying,
stuff. Hold
like-
on, I'm getting to a point here, yeah, because what sucks about all of that is the fact that I love Clone Wars, like the 2003 animation especially, because that shit is cool, right?
Yeah.
But the animated CG show, or whatever it was on Cartoon Network, that was pretty cool too. But whenever I watched it, I was always kind of like, oh, this is so cool. Shame that none of it matters, because we're all gonna die anyway.
Yeah.
And I know that already.
Yeah, I
With
can
Marvel,
see that
you
point
never
coming,
have that
yeah.
issue, because Marvel always tells its story in the now. Even like Ant-Man and the Wasp. Actually, is that set before Infinity War?
It's set like inches before Infinity War. The post-credit scene is literally like half
Yeah.
the characters dissolving.
Yeah,
so,
okay. So that's
yeah.
the first time that it kind of shies away from the whole, we're going to tell the story and keep moving along in the current, like time, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well,
Star Wars can't do that.
I mean, they're
that's
doing-
why it just, it feels cheap. Except for when you're looking at the new, the next step in the new trilogy. You know?
I mean, like, I think to argue that point, though, now Marvel is kind of trying to explore that line as well. Because now Captain Marvel's coming out. It's set in the 90s. That's set before any of the Marvel movies have been set. Like, that's the earliest Marvel movie setting
Well, that just takes away from my argument,
that
doesn't
exists. Right? It does take away from your argument. But like, I do agree, because they have this open-endedness that exists. But at the same time, like, if they, if you think about it, if they had made the Star Wars movies in sequence, would it feel any different? Because, like, if they had made Phantom Menace, then Attack of the Clones, then Revenge of the Sith, then Rogue One, then 4, 5, 6... Oh, wait, then it was probably Revenge of the Sith, then Solo, then Rogue One, then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like,
How
if they...
confusing would it get? Because do we count, like, the TV shows and everything then? Because think about it, Clone Wars
No,
is
totally.
before,
Totally. It's just
episode
a hypothetical.
3. Yeah, and like
It's just
after
a
episode
hypothetical,
2.
but if that were to happen, like, would those stories feel inconsequential, or would they feel consequential because they participate in the narrative?
They'd feel so much better, honestly.
Yeah. See,
If we got Rogue One before we got Episode 4, then we'd be sitting there in Episode 4 like, wow, look at like the shit they're getting accomplished because of the sacrifices of the characters in the prior movie.
Yeah.
People honestly would be losing their shit.
yeah,
I feel.
totally. So, like, yes, there is that point to be made, but I think that, like, ultimately, the idea that these stories are inconsequential is just a matter of perspective. It's just a matter of the fact that you, like me, have watched all of the numbered Star Wars movies, and you will have always watched all of the numbered Star Wars movies before watching all of the side material, Star Wars Rebels, the Clone Wars, Rogue One, all of that shit.
Yeah, but you do realize that it kind of like this thing that I'm talking about, how it would land even better if we got the whole story told chronologically. What we have is we have a story that's not told chronologically, and that's why it just gives you this whiplash of, oh, I'm supposed to feel for these characters, but I know they're all gonna die. Right? It's the one
That's
thing
true.
that Rogue One pulled off really well by just killing off the entire cast.
I think that was silly.
great.
I think that was silly.
Oh,
I think
thought it
that
was
they
great.
could have easily kept him alive. I don't know
No.
why they didn't. Like,
Because it was a suicide mission, basically. Like, I know it wasn't, but to drive the point home of that line in Episode 4, where like many spies gave their lives to give us this information. Like, it's great that they really showed that.
I feel like, yeah,
that so
okay.
many heroes lost their lives just to just for this mission to even take place.
No, okay, I feel you there. I definitely feel you with that. But, I'm still kind of skeptical of the idea that these movies suffer from the fact that they're doing this, like, retrospective storytelling with the Han Solo origin story. Especially since Solo is, I think, better than Rogue One. And I think the fact that it's better than Rogue One comes from the fact that it is like, it is a story that has felt free to set up its own sense of consequence, right? Because, we all know how Han Solo turns out, because, we've already witnessed basically the latter half of his life in episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, but...
Spoilers, he dies.
I mean, no shit, everyone dies, dumbass.
What? No, not like that. Jesus. That's fucking dark, man.
No. Fucking Christ. No, but, like, I think the fact that the story is so far removed means that they can set up a story that has its own sense of consequence.
And they could just do what they want.
And and they can totally do what they want. And they totally did.
It's a shame I haven't seen it, because I feel like what you're describing is probably true, yeah.
They totally did, and I loved that movie for it. And then, so going back to our debate from the last segment, like, the fact that these movies are told in one long chronological sequence is, like, much more indicative of the idea that this is, like, an odyssey rather than the sprawling epic that the Marvel movies are. That is like a sprawling, the Marvel movies, this big political drama with, like, all kinds of factions working from all parts within this giant universe.
It's like this horizontal tree that's kind of just, you got this main, main central line, but then there's all this stuff that's jumping off of it, all these lines that are just taking root of their own, forming their own stories that are still tied to the overall plot. And that's what I love so much about it, because you look at the Black Panther movie, I'm kind of sitting there like, well, this movie was fun, it was pretty good. It doesn't really mean shit to Infinity War, but we get, like, this character who ultimately will mean something, hopefully, because he didn't really do shit in Infinity War, but we get him established. We get his story, basically.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot better than Han Solo already being this household name, and then being like, oh yeah, I bet you wonder what he was like when he was 20 years old. Well, there you go.
But I think that here's the thing, right? Is, like, everybody wants the Black Widow movie, and everybody couldn't wait for the Black Panther movie, and these are characters that existed already. Same thing with Spider-Man. It's like, I don't see that there's any difference between Disney making a Han Solo movie and Marvel making a Spider-Man movie or a Black Widow movie or a Hawkeye.
It's chronological storytelling. Like I said,
that's chronological storytelling, but at the same time, it's like oh, like, Black Panther comes from Wakanda. I wonder what Wakanda's like. It's the same interaction between, it's the same question and answer interaction between the writers of the franchise of movies and the audience, right? Because it's like, oh, I wonder what this character was like in the past. I wonder what led up to him being like this. But then you see Black Panther in Civil War, and you're like, I wonder what he is like. I wonder what his life is like. I wonder what Wakanda is like,
and then we get
outside of the context, and you get it. And it's the same thing with Han Solo. And so I think that, like, it's not that it's reactive. It's more so that it's just, like, teasing and then payoff for the teasing.
Nah, because it's an origin story. That's the difference, man. It's not teasing. It's more. It's like, I don't want to call it tedious either, because God, it sucks that I haven't seen this movie. It makes me feel like I could have so much to say about it. But it's just a fundamental issue with origin stories. You know what's going to happen. You know how it's going to turn out. And sure, we get Queen of Dragons there. What's her face?
Daenerys Targaryen?
Yeah, whatever. The actress, she's in it. Emilia Clarke?
Yes. Nailed it.
Yeah,
nailed it, actually.
She's in it. And
I thought I would have gotten that. Fuck.
She's in it, and you're kind of like, oh, I wonder how things are going to turn out for her. But ultimately, who cares? Because she's not part of the main Star Wars story.
Yeah, but I think that that's what's awesome, is, like, actually some of the characters have lived across this other, like, under layer to the Star Wars narrative.
But that would be cool. That would be cool if that narrative was set in the present. Time.
Some of it was like
of Star Wars.
Yeah, some of it totally was.
No, Emilia Clarke's character. What is on my English right now? Totally isn't. She's irrelevant, man. Yeah, she's there in this like story that happened 20 years before anything of importance really occurred.
That's totally true. But, like, look at, like, Mace Windu. It was the exact same when they were making the prequels, and it was like, here's this character that existed before any of the stuff that we care about, because that's what the farthest in the future that we know about is in this universe.
True.
Right?
And the prequels are basically like what I'm describing. Like, I should have an issue with them. Yeah. And I kind of do, because they suck.
They suck, but at the same time, like, it's not like Star Wars has never done this, like, whole, like, playing with
the structure,
telling the story out of order, right? Yeah. And if you're into the Star Wars fandom, which I am, there's a thing called the Machete Order, in which you watch the movies in a separate order to how they were filmed and released, where you go 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, and now 7 and 8. Like, it just continues like that. Or you go,
why 6 after the
Because it's like this, like at the end of 5, you have the reveal that Darth Vader is Luke's father, and you're like mind blown. And then in the intervening time between episode 5 and episode 6, we have this whole retrospective that explains all of the lines that you just heard in the first 2 movies, the original trilogy.
That's cool.
And like it explains all of it, and like it bridges all of these gaps. And then we get into episode 6, and we have the catharsis of like seeing the Empire be built up, witnessing in the last 2 movies like the crimes of the Empire.
Yeah.
And then like the Empire is toppled in episode 6.
That's great.
Like it exists, and it has existed for a fucking long
That's
time.
a lot better than like the prequels just being there as they are, because one, they suck, but also because you said they're like, wow, everything that happens here is ultimately meaningless because we already know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So like I don't see that the idea of chronological release being something that just so tightly cling on to with the Star Wars movies. I don't think it's ever been about that. I think it's always been about like the broader story. And especially now with the new trilogy of movies, like I've told you, like I think that the first 6 movies are now enclosed with this Skywalker narrative. And the Skywalker narrative obviously bleeds over into the new movies, but now it feels like the last 6 movies, meaning from episode 4, A New Hope, through to 8 and then 9 coming out next year, like these movies are now about the rebellion. They are now about, how it functions, what happens, what are the dynamics. And like in the first 3 movies, it's still playing with that Skywalker narrative. So it's like, is the rebellion entirely dependent on this one person? But then at the same time, in episode 6, Lando Calrissian and all of the fighter jets and all of those people, like the actual rebels in the Rebel Alliance, they are the ones who blow up the Death Star. And all Luke Skywalker actually does is turn his father away from evil and kill the Emperor.
Oh, but we've had this discussion. Like, I kind of said that if it weren't for Luke Skywalker, then the Emperor would have been able to focus his efforts on stopping the rebellion.
Yeah, but you can't deny that element of it definitely contributes to the latter 6 movies in this 9-movie saga being more about the rebellion than about Skywalker, especially considering episode 8.
Yeah, no, I'll agree there.
So I think that Star Wars is about as consistent as Marvel, meaning that there's shit movies in there with the good ones.
Yeah, no, true.
There are some shit. There are movies that I would never watch again, but I probably will because I love Star Wars too much.
And for some reason you do, yeah, and it's blowing my mind, honestly. But I see why you love it so much.
Yeah.
I still disagree. My fundamental issue with it being the whole, I sit there watching the movies as they were made, being like, well, none of this means shit, especially the spin-off materials. I'm like, great, I didn't really need this. Marvel doesn't have that issue. But, yeah, no. I see why you love it.
Yeah, totally.
You're an idiot for loving it.
Come on, dude, shut up. Like, look, like, you can't honestly say... Well, actually, you totally can. Never mind. I was going to say something like, you can't honestly say that Thor: The Dark World is any better than The Phantom Menace, but you definitely can.
Yeah, you probably can.
The Phantom Menace...
is very sad, isn't it?
Phantom Menace is a terrible, 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 terrible film. I could not forgive it.
Yeah.
But I can, because, like, pod racing is fun, and, like, a bunch of other shit.
Okay, but speaking of Thor: The Dark World, I feel like this is a good point for us to go over our ratings for phase 2.
Yeah, let's move on. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So we start with Iron Man 3, right? Which for me was a 4 out of 10.
This time we haven't revealed these to each other.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Last time we'd already had this discussion, but this time, this is gonna be dicey.
Lay it on me. Tell me.
You might stab me for this. Iron Man 3 gets a 6.
No, okay, 6 is decent enough. If you gave it an 8, I probably would have hit you right now.
No, because I rewatched it recently and I was like, this movie is great, but it's quite obvious that Shane Black, the director, got like really boxed in to it. But like there are the bits where he shines through. Obviously, the whole like flying and catching executives bit where he's like
Very
catching
cool
all the
scene.
Air Force One workers.
Yeah.
And even the final fight where he's like flying in between Iron Man suits.
Okay, I don't know why you love that scene so much.
I
thought
love
that
it.
felt so cheap because I like the suits. I felt the suits were some of the most creative like aspects of the movie, and then they just get run through. They get destroyed.
That's true.
And it feels like a waste.
Well, that's very true. There's no sense of individuality to
There's
this
really
series.
not. And
That's true.
it also just feels like we're throwing away these potential Yeah, great
Stories.
ideas.
Stories,
No, not
really.
stories, but
I
just
feel like- no,
Tony interacting more with the suits that he's created. You
I
know,
feel-
not like they're his children, but they're like his army. You know, but instead he just throws them away. And
Kind of.
this is just, at the end, when he blows them all up, like, you and I both hate that. And I sit there like, this is the dumbest shit.
Like,
I hate that.
I go back to reading, like, those Invincible Iron Man comics I used to read in the 2000s, and he would, like, make a new suit for every story. Like, there was a story I remember where he's fighting this electricity-based villain, and he crash lands in an Amish village, and then he has to get the Amish village people to help him make an Iron Man suit.
That's so cool.
Is it not?
That's so
It's
fucking
so
cool.
sick,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's mad. Right?
Yeah.
And it's same. I haven't obviously read any Iron Man comics, but I know for a fact that he didn't just make the Hulkbuster. He's got like suits for the different Avengers as well, in case he needs to take them on.
Yeah.
That shit's so cool.
Yeah, dude. See, like,
Right?
that's what I'm talking about. It's like, when you say, like, he's busting up the suits, and you're saying, like, oh, he's interacting with this army, to me, the whole suit aspect of Iron Man is like, there's a story behind every Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
Because he has made it on one of his adventures. But then that's not the Iron Man, the same Iron Man we get in the MCU. But for me, like, when I see that cool stuff, I'm like, wow, like, can you imagine, like, the adventures that Iron Man had in space?
Yeah.
With that space suit? Like,
Yeah, man.
That's so cool.
Like Iron Man 3, its ultimate problem is, I mean, there's a lot of problems, but it's law of diminishing returns with the suits.
True.
It's too many, and then the villain sucks. And I don't have a fun time with the humor either, because it feels so like, oh yeah, I bet you were thinking the Mandarin was an actual threat. And I'm like, I mean, no, but at the same time, yes. Like, it just feels cheap.
All right, let's move on because we spent way too long on that. Thor 2, 4? I guess a 4.
2 out of 10. It's complete not a shit. Man.
I love Loki in it. I think it gets
my
there's
God.
enough redeeming factor. Like, Loki is enough of a redeeming factor for me to give it a 4.
No, because Loki can't carry that movie on his own. He couldn't.
No,
Thor.
he can't. That's why it's not a good rating from me. It's not a positive rating. It's a fucking 4 out of 10.
Yeah, but like, it's not a 2 out. It's a 2 out of 10. Dude.
You see, you
It's
should
shit.
be. You're a fucking emotional piece of shit, dude.
Dude, I'm the cynic.
Fuck
I'm
that.
subjectivity personified. man.
You're so full of shit. All right,
Fuck you.
Captain America 2. So, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, I should say.
Okay, you go.
7.
8. 8 out of 10. Have you rewatched it recently?
You know, I probably might even go up to an 8.
Because you should.
I'm thinking critically
It's good.
about it. I just kind of like, you know, yeah. No.
It's got some of the best action in like
Yeah.
the MCU as a whole. Because what I love about Captain America and what I love about that movie is the fact that he fights as a human. I get it. Everything that he does is super impossible and improbable, but that's because he's a superhuman. He's a super soldier.
I'm kind of over like
right?
the martial arts bit at this
It's
point.
not
though.
even martial arts though. It's just him being an absolute tank.
It's totally martial
And
arts,
it's
bro.
dumb as fuck, right? When he uses the what's it called, his shield to take down a helicarrier or whatever. Like, don't get me wrong, it's so stupid. But then you get stuff like the elevator scene where he takes out like what was it, like 12 dudes?
I mean, that's
15
sick.
dudes.
Yeah, look,
and then he has to like jump out of it, and he absorbs the landing.
and then he
because
rides
goes, like,
he rides a motorcycle
30 feet down,
That's
and he-
sick, like all that
it's
kind of
so
stuff.
cool.
Yeah, no, all right. I'll give it an 8. I'll push it
and
up
yeah,
to it.
it's got a great story behind that. I
I'm
really like
crossing
the
it
way.
out. I'm writing 8. It's on my notes.
Good job, you did it. Also, what's her face? Black Widow is just great in it, and I love the way that she bounces off of.
Yeah, the
Captain.
the only my biggest problem with this movie is her fucking hair.
Can you stop with that?
I fucking love her hair in Avengers, and I love it in Infinity War, and this is the worst it's ever looked.
Look, if this podcast gets to the point where we take time to discuss Black Widow's hair, then I quit.
Let's rate her hair, dudes.
No, I refuse. We're moving on.
Okay,
Fuck you.
moving on.
That's a terrible
Guardians
idea.
of the Galaxy. I know you give
Here
this
we
a
go.
shit one. What do you-
3 out of 10.
It's a fucking 7. Fuck you, dude.
It's a shit movie, and you know it.
No, like, it's obviously not as good as the best, but it's still a 7 out of 10, man.
Everyone tells me that it's such a good time, right? And everyone gives me shit for hating this movie as much as I do. But I can't get over how much I hate these characters. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Groot, I like Rocket Raccoon, but I hate Star-Lord, and I hate
Yeah,
Drax.
he's kind of a fucking
And Gamora
douchebag, man.
is the chick, you know, and then that's the one role that
No
she
way,
fulfills.
she gets more characterization than Black Widow does, or any of the female
I mean,
leads.
she does, but then she's ultimately still just there to be the girlfriend for
No,
Peter Quill.
no fucking way,
Yes,
dude.
she is.
No, she's not.
And then
Look
the
at her
villain
role
is
in Infinity
garbage.
War. Look at her role in Infinity
I know
War.
she's important in Infinity War, and like
Yeah.
they set up the Thanos dynamic pretty well. Right,
No,
I'll give them that.
She has way more like context to her position within the broader conflict of the MCU, and it's given in this movie and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 alone. Like, some of my favorite parts of the second film in this line, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, definitely fucking Nebula and Gamora interacting. Like,
Right.
I just love the character growth. I love the real sense of like, there's a sense of like sisterhood between these two characters, even though they very clearly have very little reason to actually put up with each other anymore.
Yeah. No,
and
that's
I love
true.
it. I love it. I think it's great.
They got a good dynamic, but yeah, Peter Quill and Gamora, it only pays off
it's
in
kind of
Infinity War, and even then it's kind of cheap. Because
Even
we
then,
got one good
fucking
scene out of
hated
it.
it. That's probably I didn't like that at all.
Yeah.
Although I did like it when he thought he was going to shoot her and then he shot Bubbles.
Yeah, that was in Infinity War, right? And I'm saying, like, the whole shitty setup that we got was not worth that scene. As much as I like that scene, it's just, God, it's so forced.
Yeah, I feel like they could do a better job, but whatever, it's whatever.
And then we got my probably least favorite scene in all the MCU, hand-holding to defeat the villain.
Oh, we'll talk about that later.
3 out of 10.
We're saving that for the rewrites. Fuck you.
Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron gets 6 from me.
5. It's smack bang in the middle. It's that movie.
I think Whedon's good enough at writing the Avengers that the banter is there. Dude,
True.
Everyone was doing the language joke for like a month. Everyone was going language.
It was the cheapest joke in the movie.
Yeah, but it was
And
kind of
was
cute.
terrible.
It was really cute.
No, what was cute
The
was
first time you saw it.
when they were all trying to lift the hammer, and then Captain America manages to lift it a little, and you see Thor's
That's what I'm
face
talking
just suddenly
about.
drop.
That's
like that
totally-
shit-eating grin just drops, and I'm like,
That's totally
that's good.
Dude, I remember,
like that doesn't save the movie.
I remember my friend sending me a meme of that where it's like this. It's like Thor's inner monologue, and it's he budges Mjolnir, and Thor's all like, "What? Has Mjolnir forsaken me?" And then he doesn't lift it, and fucking Thor's all like, "Alas, she was only jesting."
Oh, true, yeah, because then he's still grinning when it's only a little bit. Yeah.
It's funny.
That's great.
It's
That's
so funny.
subtle.
It's cute. That's what I mean. That's why it's a 6. Is like all that area of it is cute, and then the bit where Hawkeye's all like, "There's robots and shit flying everywhere, and I'm just a guy with a bow and arrow," and I'm like, "Yes, you are. I love you for this."
But that
And also, his
cheap
family is
again.
adorable.
Yeah, no, his family is cute, but it came out of nowhere, and it wasn't earned at
But
all.
it was needed. It wasn't
Like,
earned, but it was needed.
Like, we needed it for the second act of this movie, for sure,
Yeah.
because that was going nowhere, right?
100%. I loved it.
Look,
I mean, I didn't love
I'll
it.
tell
It gets
you-
a 6.
Yeah, it gets a 5, because what I thought about that whole second act with the house and whatnot, we needed it, and it was a good way of kind of setting that up, in to make way for the final conflict. But, God, that's only because the first act was shit, and then by the time we get to obscure Eastern European city, which name I can't remember, I'm just like,
Sokovia.
whatever, man. I did not care at that point. I did not care what was happening in this movie, and it
definitely.
bored me, and I'm not going to watch it again.
Definitely.
5 out of 10.
All right, and then last one, Ant-Man.
Are we agreed? Oh, no, we haven't talked about it yet. I said 6 out of 10.
I said 6, yeah.
Yeah, look at that. I kinda
when
had
you
the
mentioned
feeling
it
you would.
earlier, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, because we both kind of agree on Ant-Man just being entertaining enough.
It's cute. It's really high concept, which I love.
Yeah.
It's really cute. They really play with their concept a lot in a very, very creative way.
Oh yeah.
I think that this movie, of all of the movies in our rewrite section, it deserves the idea that it be unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just, I guess it just kind of like is what it is, and I like it for that,
Yeah. I gave a 6 out of 10 to the first Captain America, and I think those two movies are...
We agreed.
Yeah.
We agreed on that.
They're both just, they're passable. They're enjoyable. You sit there like, I had a good time. You know, and that's what Ant-Man is.
All right. So scores completely out of the way. What was your average? Did you have an average?
I don't calculate that stuff, but looking at this, God, my ratings are low. I hate Phase 2.
It's terrible. I think I have a 6 to a 7 average.
You're looking at like a 4 here, dude, because
Dude,
we got 2s and 3s.
Fuck you. This phase was way better than you give it credit.
Nope, it was terrible.
On the whole ranking, out of 3. Out of the 3 phases that we have so far, on the whole, what is this place?
What do you think this is,
3.
dude?
It's 3 out of 3,
This
isn't
is
it?
the bottom of
You're
the...
a fucking asshole, man.
Bottom of the
Even though
barrel,
I
man.
would probably even put it a 3, considering that Phase 1 is like
Good.
pretty solid.
Mm.
But also, I hate Iron Man 2
Yeah,
and
but-
Thor.
Yeah, but Thor 2 is worse. and Iron Man 3 is worse.
I mean,
in my books, at least.
Phase 3 gets top spot.
It does.
Because it's got all the good ones. Anyway, fucking...
You and I will probably agree there, ultimately. I give Phase 2 no credit. Like, other than Winter Soldier, that phase sucked. Ant-Man was, like, decent, and then the rest of the movies are just below average.
Fuck you, dude. You're a fucking asshole. Rewrites.
Here we go, yeah.
We're moving on to rewrites.
Oh, my God. At least we agree here a little.
I mean, we have to agree.
We
had to brainstorm all of these movies, and at least we agreed, in a lot of aspects about how we should how they could change to become more consistent with our franchise. I think before we start with the movies in particular, we should talk about our idea of having an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot for the franchise as a whole, for the whole series of 19 movies leading into Infinity War. Remember that?
We already have that, right? What's his face? Thor standing for the cosmic threat of Thanos.
Yeah. Captain America being the setup for S.H.I.E.L.D.
Exactly, S.H.I.E.L.D. And then Iron Man being... What would he stand for then?
Iron Man is the A plot. Thanos is the B plot. S.H.I.E.L.D. is the C plot.
Right.
So here's how it functions. I have all these notes somewhere, but basically we had an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot that we decided to rewrite all of the 19 movies around. And our A plot is Iron Man and his sort of arc of first interacting with this cosmic threat or this existential threat, and then his arc of worrying about it and PTSD and trying to confront it through different elements, and then ultimately coming to face it in Infinity War.
Yeah.
That's a full character arc over the course of 5-6 movies that he participates in.
Which is great, because it culminates in the best fight in Infinity War 2, because all of that stuff just felt like the two leaders of these factions going toe-to-toe, and I loved it. Yeah.
And so our B plot is Thanos hunting the Infinity Stones and the Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
So we have all of our cosmic movies like Guardians of the Galaxy. We have all of our magic movies. Well, all one of our magic movies. Plus a few others like the other Thor movies.
Yeah, they'll be tied to that.
Will be more about the Infinity Stones and stuff, the items that we actually want to sort of forward into this. And so, in getting rid of a lot of movies, we've gotten rid of. Well, we get rid of our second movie in this phase. I think it's cool. I think it's important that this element be this element of our sort of rewrites be something that we recall and draw upon for each movie, because each movie will participate in one of the three main plots until we get to sort of Infinity War, where the A and B plots fully collide, and then in Captain Marvel, which we haven't seen yet, but it'll come out next year. When we watch that, our rewrite for that would presumably be some form of culmination or an element. It would definitely be something to deal with, the interaction between the A and B plot and the C plot.
If it doesn't know that already. Because, in Infinity War 2 is probably Captain Marvel is obviously going to be a big key to that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I feel like she might... I mean, it's probably not going to involve S.H.I.E.L.D. explicitly, but she does kind of stand for S.H.I.E.L.D., because it's Nick Fury that contacts her in the post-credit scene.
All right. So, Iron Man.
We'll
Let's go. Iron Man. This is our second Iron Man film because we completely eliminated the original Iron Man 2 because it was entirely inconsequential.
Which is great, because this would put Iron Man 3, quote-unquote, now being Iron Man 2, after, Avengers, right? After what happened in New York, which is what we want to kind of expand upon. We want to really talk about Iron Man's PTSD leading to his obsession and paranoia with Thanos.
Yep.
Right, because Thanos becomes in case you guys forgot, Thanos he's revealed in the Avengers when Iron Man goes through the portal at the end when he's trying to drop the nuke, and when they're trying to drop the nuke on New York, and he sends it into the portal. Thanos will be there, and this leads to it won't be a proper interaction that they have, but it definitely he leaves an impression. On Iron Man that we want to explore,
Because Thanos is the only distinct and recognizable figure among this very apparent existential threat.
Exactly.
Because he's standing there among the whole of his invading force.
Yeah.
And then they stop the port or the wormhole.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, so Iron Man, obviously, our version of Iron Man 3 will participate in our A-plot because it's about Iron Man. And so, and it already kind of does in the context of the actual movie, kind of plays with the idea of Tony having PTSD after the original Avengers. But only, our character arc for Iron Man in this movie that we decided on is much more to do with his, like, compulsive behavior surrounding the suit. And I feel like, we haven't mentioned this before actually, but I feel like it's a good lead into Spider-Man Homecoming, because in Homecoming, Tony says something like, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve it.
Right.
And then in this movie, this is where Tony will learn that lesson, right?
Right.
Because he, in the real movie and in our rewrite, is fully dependent on the Iron Man suits for a sense of security.
Yeah.
But he doesn't get it. And so if we were to rewrite Iron Man 3, he would be dependent and then make an explicit connection between the fact that he exists outside of the realm of his armor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and he's still a hero outside of the realm of his armor, you know?
Yeah.
That's a big point we've got to get across as well.
Yeah. So we're cleaning up the ending because in the ending of the movie itself, it's also really bad. That message, the idea that he's still Iron Man when he's outside of the armor, like he's still a hero outside of the armor, that's a huge problem. That's problematic in the movie because he destroys all of his armor.
Yeah.
And that feels like such a mixed message because he's kind of just like shooting everything in the face of his identity as Iron Man and giving it all up.
Once again, what we need here is basically, like we talked about this in Iron Man 1 as well, we didn't want like a big just CG fight, one suit against another. I think we want a similar thing here where Iron Man learns that he can defeat his enemies using his brain alone, you know. So sure, he's got like a smaller army of Iron Man suits that are fighting for him, but the villain, and we'll cut the Mandarin out because that shit was just useless and unnecessary.
I mean, we already talked about this, but Extremis is a good enough arc on its own to carry this movie.
No,
like,
it is. Yeah.
Totally.
And I feel if we get Iron Man to defeat him at the end using like his wits alone, you know, playing against his weakness, using the environment to his advantage, not even using his suits, jumping from suit to suit, right? But kind of using the suits as a distraction, it'll drive the point home of him being a hero outside of his suits as well.
Yeah, no, I think what I think I love is the idea that Iron Man treats his suits as more as expendable in the final fight. Like it's like he has that revelation before he starts the fight, and so him treating his suits as expendable is like he's already made that realization.
Yeah.
But we could distill that whole thing that I just described into one moment, which is a moment that's in the movie as it exists, where he puts the Mark 42 suit on the Guy Pearce's character, the Extremis guy.
Oh, right.
And it's like he fully treats the armor as its own, like it's just a tool. It's a mechanism through which he can defeat evil.
Yeah.
But it is not his element of outside. Anyway, we're not getting into the nitty gritty of writing an actual whole finale for this movie. But we think that the key points are that Tony has this confrontation with his PTSD that isn't fully resolved by the end of the movie.
Right.
Because that's not, the PTSD is the arc for the character.
Yeah.
But his arc is realizing that he is more than his suits of armor.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, we had stuff like only the Mark 42 gets destroyed in the final fight.
Yeah.
Also, we have to introduction War Machine because we ignored him. We completely ignored Iron Man 2, so War Machine gets introduced as the Iron Patriot, and eventually becomes more of a partner for Tony.
And will probably be there at the end. Was he in Iron
Man?
He was.
He was there at the end. He didn't have a suit.
Exactly.
Anyway,
that's like how little I meant. But we'd make that. We just make things more important. The themes that they had already were just terribly developed in Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
And I feel like it'd be easy to bring those points across in a better way.
100%. All right, moving on. Winter Soldier. We're keeping this as is. But
that's because, hold on, we get rid of the Dark World because that movie is useless.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the Dark World. That's right. Totally getting rid of the Dark World because
all we need in Thor 2 that we make after that, like Thor 3 basically, is that his mom dies because that's something that needs to happen.
And I definitely feel like, speaking on this, one of the things that happens at the end of Thor 2 is they give the reality gem. They give the reality gem to the Collector in the end.
Oh, right.
But I think actually it's a cooler reveal if when the Collector ends up with the power gem in Guardians, which is just a bit in the middle, he like puts it up, holds it up next to the reality gem. Right. And so you reveal that he has the reality gem. And it's like, whoa, like he's already got it. That's kind of, it's a cooler reveal, I think. That'd be
much better.
Yeah. So getting rid of Thor 2, Winter Soldier, we're kind of keeping it as is because it's already like probably one of the best political dramas in this, and it already plays really well with our C plot, which is really what Captain America is as a character really explores. Yeah. So
no, it's a well done movie that completely lines up with what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. So we also wanted to introduce Shield as Zemo, Baron Zemo as a component of the Hydra movement, but not someone that's of any particular consequence within the movie itself.
Yeah.
So just kind of like a lackey of the bad guy. What's his name? The CEO guy who takes over S.H.I.E.L.D. in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I forget the name. But
just
he
kind
won't
of
serve his own agenda. It's just we introduce him in what's it called?
We introduce him in the Winter Soldier as a B character who then becomes our A villain later down the line.
That's great actually. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, that's the one thing we'd put in.
All right, next up is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh boy.
This is a big discussion. I think that this and Age of Ultron is kind of vying for like top spot on how much we would actually change.
Age of Ultron probably would still win.
That's true.
But Guardians has
you don't like this, but I think I put this forward as well when we were discussing this, but I think that your biggest issue with the movie itself is the idea that the holding hands bit is like somehow like this like them coming together as a family. And like it kind of just like it cheapens the whole movie because it feels less earned, because all of their interactions are kind of like cynical and bickering and all kinds of
they don't seem like family at all. They seem like a bunch of guys like rugged, like wary guys who are just bantering because that's how they cope with the situation.
And you recognize
feel like family at all.
You recognize that the quote unquote push that they get is like Groot's sacrifice.
Yeah.
But I really liked that aspect of your criticisms that we were discussing. So doubling down on that, we rework the ending in our rewrite. We change it so that instead of Groot being the reason that they come together as a family, the ending is sort of both the reason and the moment, rather than just being the moment.
It feels like a proper climax, as opposed to just a complete... I mean, it's anti-climax, the whole dance-off thing and then holding hands, which can work, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, so you kind of get like... I like to think of it as like an Avengers moment where they're kind of all standing there ready to face the threat together.
The big thing here is I want to drive the point home that they're Guardians. They're not like the Avengers because they don't have that kind of firepower, but what they do is they protect people even when like something like Ronan, who is obviously a massive threat, is probably going to wipe them out. And one thing that we wanted to change is Drax, because Drax is useless, and we can turn Drax into a factor that really contributes to this. And like our first step, as we discussed, is upping him in power level, basically, not making him hit hard or something, but making him borderline invulnerable.
Yeah.
Because I want him to, not just as like the butt of some jokes, but also as like a sort of dramatic factor, be able to just take every hit and keep getting up, because that's what he does. He guards people, you know, and he's still an idiot, he's still funny, but now he's actually contributing to the team. And I can have some moments where, I don't know, he's getting like smacked down by an Infinity Stone powered hammer, and he just gets up because he wants to keep protecting his friends.
Totally. No, I fully agreed with that. And like you could add like we mentioned in our sort of brainstorming session, like little moments of like true character from Drax, which we get from the other characters in like little snippets, but we don't really get any of that from Drax. Like something where he like, I mentioned like nudging a civilian out of harm's way or something in that final moment. Anyway, that's really good. The last thing that we wanted to talk about was leaving Ronan alive. Oh, and more Thanos. So we wanted to have an actual dynamic between Ronan the Accuser and Thanos.
Oh yeah.
Because he was an okay villain in the movie we got, but if he had a dynamic with our big bad, it would be sweet. And we wanted to keep him alive so that we could use him down the road.
Because we hate the children of Thanos. They're garbage. They're the worst like part of Infinity War.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And what we do instead is we have Thanos be his own legitimized character, who's kind of like, he's got his own agenda, but he's still basically part of Thanos' squad.
Yeah.
Thanos builds his own, I don't want to say Avengers obviously, but he builds his own little group.
Yeah, he has his generals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who can back him and make the fights at the end be a little more meaningful than just, oh look, it's a dark-clad soldier who's got more lines than the average lackey, but still just feels useless.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
So include more Thanos for like fit Guardians of the Galaxy more into our not our A plot, the B plot.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely sort of a catalyst for Thanos to start participating in the Infinity Stone hunt.
Yeah.
Over the course of these movies leading into Infinity War.
Yeah. No, like keep them as they are, you know, charming and funny, and obviously what people loved about them, but at the same time have them have a little impact.
100%.
That's just
100%.
The movie felt so cheap because I just sat there like, how did these idiots win?
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. All right. Next up is Age of Ultron. Now this, I just said, this is contending for top spot. This was a long discussion because we were trying to find. Initially, we found it really difficult to find a way to change this movie because it's kind of, we feel like it's a weak franchise film all around.
It is.
So
and that issue starts with the title alone.
Oh
Avengers
yeah.
Age of Ultron. It's like it's 2 days of Ultron at best.
Yeah.
You know what he gets when his plans come to fruition.
Yeah. So
we were trying to think of a title.
All caps underline. I have changed title right there on my notes.
We got nothing. You know, we thought of like what did you say? Just Avengers ... Ultron. Which is pretty cool, right? But
it's kind of weak. It's still kind of weak. I don't get it. Yeah.
We need something good. So if anyone has any good ideas, post it somewhere. You know, like
we don't. Yeah. So change title. First thing, we don't know what to because we're not good at titling movies. And then so on my notes I have more Scarlet Witch, and we had a little discussion about Quicksilver because this is an element of the movie that's very interesting because I think Scarlet Witch kind of needs Quicksilver, especially in the later role that she plays in these movies, in Civil War and in Infinity War.
When is he brought up?
He's not necessarily brought up as an element of the character's past. Like he plays into her like being this really self-conscious character, being this really like cautious and kind of anxious character, especially in Civil War when
Wouldn't
she is...
her being a lone wolf drive this point home even more?
No, because both of their characters, like their shared identity, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, their shared identity is like this motivated like revenge story. But then when that is shattered, like when that is obviously changed by the fact that they realize that Ultron is evil. Like I just think, and also I think the character generally was kind of pretty okay, and I don't think that having a few like inconsequential deaths is really that bad, especially considering how many we've already had on the villain side of things. Having a hero that's introduced for a single movie and then dies is like kind of another element of like building up a bigger world.
But who cared when the guy died? Because we compare that to a hero death like in what's it called, Lord of the Rings, when Boromir goes out in the first movie. That's
true.
Like it's a monumental scene. You know,
that's
it's one
true.
of the best scenes.
So maybe we play up the idea that Scarlet Witch, play up the relationship between Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
Look, I'd make the argument that we can get rid of Quicksilver entirely, because what we do is we basically have Scarlet Witch as this lone wolf kind of outcast character who's scared and she doesn't understand her powers completely and she just needs a guiding hand. And then Ultron she stumbles upon Ultron and he's like, you know, I will guide you, you know, in the way that you need. And she buys it and she works with him until ultimately she comes to the realization of, wow, this dude is crazy, you know. And she has more of a character revelation on her own where she's like, I should switch sides, you know, because he's insane.
Yeah.
And I can be a hero, you know, despite all this crap that I've gotten from the world being ostracized and whatnot. That doesn't mean that I can't be a hero.
Well, see, I think it leads in. I think, you know, you're making a really good case for Scarlet Witch's character, and I really like that. And I do agree that we really need more of her in this movie. But I think that in line with our other rewrites, the idea that Hydra is a more pervasive element of this movie, which is something we'll obviously talk more in depth about in a bit. But the idea that Hydra is a more pervasive part of this movie makes their interactions with both Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver a lot more meaningful, or a lot more impactful in terms of the actual plot of the actual narrative that the movie sets up.
Yeah.
And so his sacrifice in the end is like a harsh casualty within our C plot, or it can be.
Yeah.
Definitely has potential to be.
The sacrifice just didn't work fundamentally because he sacrifices himself for Hawkeye for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
If it was something else, like he sacrificed himself to land a killing blow or something, or to really do some damage, then I'd sit there like, okay, that's meaningful, because he suddenly realized that he's part of something greater than himself, and he's willing to lay his life down for that. But instead, it's just Hawkeye being like, oh, this dude just died for me. Great, yeah. I'm going to keep going. And I'm sitting there like, wow, that meant nothing.
All right. Well, I think we should move on, because this is kind of like a debate that's going to keep going forever.
No, that's true.
I think we should move on to our final, my final point, which is a big,
Zemo, yeah.
Yeah, heavily involve
Let's have that dude
Age
in
of Ultron.
This movie.
Yeah,
exactly.
We heavily involve Age of Ultron in our C plot, and transplant Zemo from Civil War into Age of Ultron. But he'll still be in Civil War. He'll just play a different role and have a different plot. And so I really like this idea that Zemo is still hunting for perfect assassins and warriors, same way that he was in Civil War. But I also feel like, in Civil War, his character is really
he exists as an element to drive the plot forward. That's all he is. He feels cheap because of that. Whereas I think what we were talking about is we introduce him as a sort of infiltration agent, where he's obviously a very smart dude, so he can pretend to be a scientist who wants to work with Tony, and then capitalizes on his paranoia related to Thanos to kind of create Ultron.
Oh yeah,
as one of the first seeds of chaos to drive the Avengers apart.
Yeah. So effectively, Zemo. This is all based on the fact that Zemo in the comics is a big Hydra villain.
He's an immortal, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, he's kind of the Sand guy from the first Hellboy movie.
Right.
The Nazi Sandman.
Yeah.
He kind of sits in that realm of the occult immortal, rather than the real immortal.
Yeah.
So he's this artificial immortal.
A homunculus.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah. So, but we obviously don't want to do that because it's kind of unrealistic in the sense of the MCU.
Yeah.
But
still very cool.
But there is this idea that he exists as a big villain in the he exists as a big villain in the whole Hydra sort of faction in the comics. So we keep them. You keep that link rather than separating him like the movies do with Civil War.
Yeah.
We keep that link, and he becomes a big component in Hydra, and then you say he starts working at a villainous thing, and then after the Winter Soldier, the primary goal of Hydra is now to disassemble the Avengers.
Yeah.
And so Zemo is working behind the scenes. He's infiltrating and pushing that agenda.
Yeah.
And I really like that because it links his actions in both Civil War and Age of Ultron, or our rewrite of Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
And we don't really even have to fiddle with we can exclude the whole more Winter Soldiers subplot from Civil War, which is kind of weak.
Yeah.
And still have a lot of the payoff, right?
Yeah.
Still have a lot of the elements of I ordered the Winter Soldier to kill Tony Stark's parents and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's down the road. But
that's the conflict of Civil War, right?
Yeah.
And we'd still have that. What'd be great about this is the fact that we have Ultron set up in a way where it actually makes sense. Because Ultron was kind of created in Age of Ultron, where I said that but why? Why the hell was this dude created? I get that Tony's paranoid, but it was so
100%.
It was so not developed that you sit there this is stupid,
Yeah.
But you're having Zemo there to kind of really bring that point across of I'm using Tony basically to drive the Avengers apart.
Oh yeah.
Right, by starting with Ultron.
Yeah.
Then we've got a good segue into
100%.
what leads to Civil War.
Yeah, and I just as a final point, I really like the idea that now this rewritten Age of Ultron is truly it's an Avengers movie, so it's kind of there to cap off it's there to mark another foot in this long story, And as an Avengers movie, it has an element of the A plot, an element of the B plot, and an element of our C plot.
Yeah.
Because it's got the Infinity Stone, it's got Iron Man's PTSD, and it has a whole bigger involvement in our C plot.
Also, it fixes Ultron, because the problem with Ultron is the fact that he doesn't land as a villain. They play him up as this, like, this big threat, but he's really not. And what we'd have here is Zemo basically being the villain of the movie, while Ultron is his dragon, his muscle. And what we get is we get Ultron to be a little beefier in this film to really do some damage in the final fight, which also leads to the whole government suddenly taking action against the Avengers, being like, we can't have this shit happening again, you know, because Ultron leveled the city last time, and you guys were basically responsible for that, you know, because they're looking for someone to blame.
Yeah, 100%. All right.
That would work so much better.
We'll obviously we'll have this discussion a lot more when we talk about Civil War down the road. But the last thing we got to do, we're running over time. But I mean, this will be a really short discussion. Like, Ant-Man is the final movie in this phase,
and it's fine.
We're kind of just not like, we kind of went over this in our reviews, but like, this is a movie we don't really need to touch.
It just works on its own.
Yeah, it totally does. I would, in an ideal world, keep Edgar Wright as a director.
Hell yeah! I think that push it up to an 8
and make it a funnier movie. But that's it. It doesn't need anything else.
But yeah, you know, it works as is. It's just it could have been better.
Yeah. All right. Is that everything?
That's it. You know?
Is anything coming out this week that we're gonna go see?
No, but you went and saw, what's it called?
Smallfoot. I saw Smallfoot, and
I saw. Franchise that?
And they're not gonna franchise Smallfoot. If they give that a sequel, I'm gonna fucking cry. I went and saw Bad Times at the El Royale, which is more of an artsy thing.
You're going to franchise that?
No. Fuck no.
But yeah, no, that's good. You know, I like seeing movies where you kind of sit there like, oh, hey, they're not trying to incorporate a whole universe that they're trying to set up.
Oh yeah.
You know, it feels refreshing.
And it was really good. Yeah. I reckon you'd love that movie.
I should probably check it out.
It's right up your alley of like being incredibly dark, but also very emotionally vulnerable.
But isn't it kind of a sad fact that we're getting to the point where a movie that doesn't feel franchise oriented is a breath of fresh air? Like
kind of, but I think that was kind of always the thing. Like, everyone goes to see Star Wars, but not everyone is going to go to see Bad Times at the El Royale. So, like, you know. Anyway, yeah. More to come next week. What are we going to talk about?
Probably Phase 3, right?
Well, we're definitely going to talk about the first half of Phase 3 for our rewrites.
Oh, yeah, we got to do that in 2 parts.
Because it's a real big phase. And next week we should pick a franchise to talk about.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a horror franchise?
Oh, hell yeah. No, I'd love to do that.
You want to do a horror?
The Conjuring, because I have so many issues with The Conjuring.
No, I don't want to watch The Conjuring. Can we do...
We'll make it a surprise.
Yeah, we'll make it a surprise. We'll decide. It's going to be fucking weird.
It should be a good time, though.
It'll be fucking stupid. Alright, next week then.
Exactly.